I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the April 20th, 2023 TPA Governing Board meeting. If the staff could please call the roll so we can establish our quorum.
At this time, I'm only asking those board members attending in person to respond by saying here when I call your name. As a reminder, you can unmute your microphones by pushing the button on the base prior to responding. Your microphone will turn red. Alternates, please also state your name if you are attending on behalf of a TPA board representative. Steve Wilson,
Here.
Yvette Drucker,
Here.
Fran Naklis. Here. Angela Cruz. Shelley Petrolia.
Here.
Joelle Flores,
Present.
Jim Koretsky,
Here.
Ronaldo Diaz,
Here.
Joni Brinkman,
Here.
DeAndre Poole,
Here.
Greg Weiss,
Here.
Marcy Woodward. Here. Maria Sachs is absent. Mac Bernard.
Michael Barnett as his alternate present.
Thank you. Shirley Lanier. Fred Pinto,
Here.
Michael Napoleon,
Here.
Christy Fox. Here. Joseph Peduzzi,
Here.
Maria Marino. Chelsea Reed.
Goodness, here. Thank you, Amanda. I appreciate that. Wonderful. We've asked Mayor Wilson to please give us the invocation, and following that, we will do the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Let us pray. Oh, Heavenly Father, we come to you once again, as always, with bowed heads and humble hearts, thanking you for your grace and your mercy. Realizing, Father, over and over and over again, that through your grace and your mercy, you've been better to us than we've been to ourselves. And with that, we say thank you. Thank you, Father, for the multiple good things you placed on this earth, even when we don't show our gratitude for its purpose and existence. Father, we ask you to continue to give us words to comfort our fellow men and women, even when we are angry and frustrated and disagree with each other, especially during times like these. Father, we proclaim your name above all names. Help us to do our part to live in unity with all of your people. May we never separate what you put together. And finally, Father, we ask a special blessing for the chairperson of this meeting. You know her heart. And all of us whom you have allowed to be assembled here today, realizing that we're no strangers to each other, just perhaps friends we have not yet met. We give you all the praises and the glory. Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
Are there any modifications to the agenda today?
No, Madam Chair.
Wonderful. All right, before we approve the minutes, I think we forgot one person when we did roll call. So if we could, Vice Mayor Napoleon, if you could please introduce our special guest today.
Despite National Take Your Child to Work Day being next week, Palm Beach County Schools is doing it today. So today we have my fourth grade son, Luca Napoleon here, who's going to listen in for as long as he can tolerate before his headphones go back on. So.
Okay, we'll try to keep it lively. Good morning. All right, so I'm seeking a motion to adopt the agenda for today, please.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a second and a motion. So we have Vice Mayor Napoleon with the motion and Mayor Flores with the second. And do we have anyone remotely at all? No, we don't.
No, ma'am.
So we'll just go ahead and skip that. And if anyone would like to provide general public comments, instructions on how to provide public comments are included in the agenda. Staff, I have, do we have any general comments that have been received so far?
Not at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay, great. And I think minutes. One moment. I don't see the minutes to approve the minutes. Okay, all right, never mind. Okay, thank you. All right, so we're going to move on to comments from the chair and member comments. So I just have a couple things that I'd like to share if I could before we dig in. So several of us had the opportunity to go to Austin, Texas last week. So I see lots of our Austin, Texas friends here today, as well as our stakeholders from the community that were able to join us. And I want to thank you guys. Before we, actually, I think our executive director will probably go into a little bit more depth on it, but I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a background as to why on earth we were traveling to Austin, Texas, right? So it doesn't seem like something we normally do. It's wonderful to look at other communities that are similar to ours, growing, lots of community involvement, hot and needing change as more and more people are coming in. And I believe in Austin, they were saying that their population has pretty much doubled in the last 10 years. So they are definitely managing an influx of human beings of all ages. So back in 2020, there was a peer exchange that took place here at the TPA with Valley Metro from Phoenix and Cap Metro from Austin. They each came for a day so that we could learn about what they had been doing in their hot, busy places. They also have passed transportation surtaxes. So we wanted to hear about what that process was like for them, the lessons learned, the things that they did well and they would do again, and the things that they wish they hadn't done, because we need to learn these things as we go forward. We also have reports available from that 2020 meeting on our website. We can also share them if you're curious about that. And after this meeting, staff will be putting together some information from our trip to Austin. There were some blasts on Facebook as well as a section on the website and in the newsletter this week, but there'll be a little bit more follow-up with things along the lines of the bios of those who we spoke with, what they talked about, as well as the slides that they presented. So all of that will be available. But the story of it actually began even before the peer exchange in 2020, before Valerie was even executive director. She was pushing for this kind of stuff to happen. So the reason I wanted to go on and on was to thank Valerie. The one thing I did notice about our time in Austin is that their TPA, their MPO, wasn't there. It didn't have anything to do with the forward movement that took place in Austin. So I wanted to take a moment to thank our TPA staff and our executive director and Brian Reischer for his time as well, all of the planning that went behind it, for the donuts as well. We appreciate them. But you guys stuck your necks out in order to educate us. And now you are the quarterback. We're going to catch that ball, and all of the elected officials, the people who are in our economic development corridor, as well as especially the county, are now going to go forward with the information that we learned. So that's all I wanted to say. And I wanted to thank all of you who took the time to go. I know it's a big ask to go, and we did. We rode every kind of transit you could possibly imagine, everything from scooters to bike. And Councilmember Drucker got on a bicycle for the first time in 26 years. 27. So it was a pretty momentous week, but nonetheless, we'll be sharing more and more with you. And we'll go on to our executive director's report. Thank you for indulging my time.
Thank you. Before I jump into our executive director's report, I just want to see if anyone else has any member comments, or also welcome our new member, official member, Councilmember Nakolas. Thank you. You were here last time as an alternate. Now you're the official second member for City of Boca Raton. Welcome. Happy to have you. And then also Commissioner Michael Barnett. We're glad to have you. I know you're here as an alternate, but welcome to our TPA board meetings. Thank you. Not sure if anyone else has any member comments. Oh, here.
I didn't know if the chair recognized me.
I do recognize you. Thank you.
All right. Couple things. I wanted to make or share with the TPA and our board. On behalf of our board, we are sending a letter to Coast Guard in regards to the bridge openings, the 3 bridge openings connecting town of Palm Beach and the city of West Palm Beach. That was after a meeting with both the city of West Palm Beach and the town. So we're going to see if we might be able to help alleviate some of the congestion due to unnecessary bridge openings during rush hour. And then I attended an FDOT presentation earlier this week in regards to some projects they're going to be doing both on Georgia Avenue and on Southern Boulevard. I have to kudos to FDOT. My understanding is the work that's going to be done on Southern Boulevard there's a bridge that crosses over the railroad tracks. And that's one of the few crossovers that we have. And that is going to only happen at night. The closures will be at night. And there'll be a detour around that area. They expect that project to go on for 4 weeks. But it'll be open during the day, which is, that's great because it's a very important point of connectivity. And then I saw in today's reports, there's going to be resurfacing on Okeechobee Boulevard, and I'm wondering if we can get some additional information on the plan for that. And how, the closures that might happen on Okeechobee and for how long. I think that would be, it would be very helpful for us all to understand as we're trying to work on, I know I am, and with the city of West Palm and the town of Palm Beach, we're all working together to try and see what we might be able to do to lessen some of the traffic impacts on Okeechobee Boulevard during rush hour. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor White. I'm going to recognize Christy Fox, please.
Thank you so much. I wanted to just start by tag teaming with Mayor Weiss on the Okeechobee Boulevard. I had the opportunity last night to go to an FDOT program to talk about that a little bit. And they mentioned it will be starting at sometime in April, and conservatively, they think it will be a 1-year project, but more likely to be 2 years. And so there was very few residents there last night. And so I asked if they could please come to an upcoming Downtown Neighborhood Association meeting, because I think it sounds like a pretty big deal. They weren't, they mentioned they would not be doing work during rush hours, but they will be closing one lane in each way for 1 to 2 years. And so knowing how busy Okeechobee is already without the addition of that construction going on, the resurfacing, and they're planning on adding bike lanes and other things. I think it would be important for all of us to know a little bit more about that, because obviously most of you all traveled on Okeechobee today. So even those of us that don't live downtown are impacted by this. And I will also try to find out more information about their next meeting, but we're going to try to have them come to a downtown neighborhood meeting, but their plans are starting soon, within the next, month. So just wanted to give you a little update on that. And just thank you so much to the TPA. Thank you to Valerie. Thank you to Brian. We had such an incredible trip to Austin. So many takeaways, but I think one of the biggest ones was to hear how closely they kind of work as a coalition with all of their members in different parts of Austin. And I think it was such a great opportunity for all of us that don't normally work together every day, but we come together at the TPA because we know how important it is that we have one traveling public, whether we're in Boca or Palm Beach Gardens or Wellington or downtown West Palm. We have people coming throughout our county. And so it's a lot of things that we can agree on. And it was just, fantastic to be there with all of you. Had some great honey pizza, which we need to bring more of that to this county, I think. But just thank you very much, TPA, for letting us have that awesome experience.
Absolutely. All right. So I'm moving over to my right. We've got Mayor Petrolia.
Yes. First, I wanted to mention that there is a wonderful TPA project currently underway in Delray Beach, in an area that was so left behind. We are getting these wonderful wide sidewalks that can handle both pedestrian and bicycle traffic together in an area that a lot of that pedestrian and bicycle traffic was moving along, but without having the benefit of even sidewalks in certain areas. And you'd see these paths through kind of almost, I would say, weeds, not grass, that indicated that we really needed that. So this is a really amazing project that's an east to west, which is really kind of an unusual. We typically get the north to south, but we're getting that east to west movement, being able to get the bicyclists, to the eastern sections that we have the actual path. So kudos, and it's really just, underway, and everybody's talking about it. And I just wanted to say thanks. And the second thing I wanted to mention, Mayor Weiss, you mentioned that you're going to be asking for less bridge closures or on-demand bridge closures. We've got one of your a county bridge as well, which is one that you're going to be replacing eventually. That's the George Bush Boulevard Bridge. I get constant number, a tremendous number of people that are complaining about it just opens on Will and it creates just such backup. So I don't know if we can piggyback on what you're doing. We've tried and it has not worked out. So I'm wondering if maybe as a county bridge, we might be able to piggyback with you to maybe affect, more of a scheduled opening at that bridge and even the other bridge as well. Anyway, thank you so much.
Excellent point. I think we'll bring around the bridge conversation again. Councilmember Drucker, please.
Thank you. Good morning. First, I wanted to welcome my colleague, Fran. I hope that this group inspires you as much as it's inspired me and educated me in the last, 2.5 years. I also wanted to give an update. There's an FDOT project in Boca Raton. The DDI is finally open and operating the way it should be. So I personally haven't heard any other complaints or feedback, but if you're in Boca Raton and you go by it, I hope you enjoy it. It is alleviating traffic and it's working its purpose, and it was ahead of time. And lastly, I want to thank Valerie and Brian. Valerie, thank you for continuing to inspire me, educate me, and making me such a transit champion. And Brian, my peer pal on the bike that said, if you fall, I will catch you. Not sure how that was going to work, but I appreciate your patience and getting me on that bike after 27 years. And Valerie, you've been pushing me for a year to get on the bike. So hashtag Yvette on the bike finally happened. So thank you. And to all the peers that were on our exchange, we learned so much. And I just can't wait to see what's to come, because the best is yet to come when it comes to this group and to all of us pushing transit modes. Thank you.
All right, we'll be moving on to the executive director's report. I just do want to say what I'm hearing from everyone is this new sense of even further collaboration than we've ever had before. So I'm hoping that the enthusiasm we all have from the peer exchange will come through. And if it means that we'll have less bridge closures as well, I think we're all for it, especially our residents. So with that, we'll go ahead, Valerie, please.
Thank you so much. And thank you all to all of you. I do have as my last item to just talk about the peer exchange. So I'll go through these, a few of the other items. First, I'd like to welcome our new staff member, our new secretary, Rachel Kerner, who's here today with us. We're very excited from her. And I also want to mention and bid farewell to Amanda Williams, our executive assistant. She is moving on to other career interests, but we're very sad to see her go, but thank her for all her hard work and help over the last about year and a half, since both of them have moved into our area from out of state, but we're happy to have them here. Yes. So thanks, Amanda. I want to mention just a congratulations to the town of Lake Park for adopting Vision Zero last month, Vision Zero resolution. Also, we had our federal certification review earlier this month on April 3rd and 4th. The representatives from the Federal Highway Administration, Federal Transit Administration, USDOT were here to evaluate us, and that went very well. We're waiting on the final report for that. That happens every 4 years. We also are having a Vision Zero workshop next Friday here at the TPA from 9 to 11. It is in person, but also available on Zoom. Many of our municipalities, I believe we're up to around 11 or 12 now that have adopted Vision Zero resolutions in the last year. The next step to that is to create a Vision Zero action plan. I know several of our municipalities, I believe 5 received the Safe Streets and Roads for All grants in the last round to create action plans. So this workshop is to not only encourage those who have not adopted a resolution yet to do so, but also to next steps on how to create an action plan and pursue funding opportunities. So please join us or send your staff representatives if you can. In addition, on May 5th, we'll be having a transportation land use connection panel here at the TPA with several local, both private and public experts on transit-oriented development and transit-oriented communities. So we invite you to join us for that. It's an educational panel. Wanted to mention there is another opportunity for the MPOAC Weekend Institute coming up on May 5th. I know council member Shirley Lanier attended the last one in Orlando, and I heard it went well. Thank you for your time and for going to that. This is a training for board members, so I do encourage participation. They do have this is a statewide training, so they do have a couple seats left. I believe Commissioner Diaz is attending, as well as Commissioner Poole is attending the May and 5th and 6th training. But if anyone else is interested, please let us know. There is no registration fee, but you are required to register and the TPA can reimburse the travel expenses. I mentioned that 5 local municipalities, including the county, but county and 4 local municipalities applied and received safe streets and roads for all grants in the last round. A new round is open for applications. Applications are due July 10th. So I encourage your local municipalities to look into that for both planning grants, for planning assistance, for transportation safety, and for projects. It's about $1 billion available nationally. So there's a good funding opportunity for that. We mentioned it at our last meeting, but Palm Tran is conducting a survey to evaluate interest for an express bus from downtown West Palm Beach to and from Port St. Lucie. We have a survey going on. You can find it at their website, palmtran.org, if you'd like to provide your input and or share. And May is National Bicycle Month. So National Bicycle Month, it celebrates bicycling nationwide. It kicks off with the National Bike and Roll to School Day. We look forward to seeing local schools in our county participate. The website walkbiketoschool.org has both resources to register, find how to create a walk and bike to roll walking school bus, biking school bus, and lots of resources there to participate. National Ride a Bike Day is May 7th, and then Bike to Work Week is May 15th to 21st. So encourage all of you to try biking and promote these activities in your local municipalities. And finally, as several board members and Chair Reed highlighted, our peer exchange, it was a great experience. Thank you so much for those who participated. Mayor Reed mentioned this is something we've been trying to do for a while. Back in 2019, I applied for a transportation capacity building program opportunity from USDOT. And that's when a representative from Cap Metro from Austin and 2 representatives from Valley Metro and Phoenix came here. Some of you may have participated. We had a roundtable day with them. They told us about things that they were doing to advance mobility initiatives, funding, and enhance transit. And our goal was to go to visit them after, but we finally hosted that in January of 2020, and then the pandemic hit. So we weren't able to go. We rescheduled it with a group of board members and partners. We both had executive directors from SFRTA, from Palm Tran, different representatives from key stakeholders in this group, and a hurricane hit in fall of 2022. So we had to reschedule it again, and we were finally able to go. So it was a great learning experience. But also an opportunity for us to gather key stakeholders and really learn how to champion and move this conversation forward in order to see how our community can move forward with advancing enhanced transit and mobility options and a potential funding source, which the TPA cannot lead. However, bringing these partners together really helps to shed the light and shed light on how to create that roadmap and move forward on that type of opportunity. So we're very excited we were able to go. In the fall, there's a conference called Revolution. It's now rebranded to be Impact Transit and Communities in Phoenix. So we're hoping to potentially attend that conference and also have a think tank there in terms of trying to learn more from them and see it in person, the things that we heard about a couple of years ago. So with that, I do have a slide just with a couple pictures, the next slide, of our peer exchange. As Chair Reed mentioned and Commissioner Fox and Councilmember Drucker, we did get to ride a lot of different modes. We rode their electric buses. Their goal is to have 100 electric buses. So we got to ride that. We got to ride their transit, their trains, their bikes, their scooters, and got to hear from a lot of their different stakeholders, both citizen advocates, elected officials, their transit executive director, and others about how they made this happen. So as Chair Reed mentioned, we are expecting to receive the presentations from that tomorrow, and we'll be putting together a summary report, posting those presentations on our website, and sharing with all of you what we learned and key takeaways from that. So thanks again for everyone who participated in that experience. And that's then.
Excellent. All right. Thank you. And thank you so much for your leadership, especially now, but even 4 years ago, before you were even in this position, to see that this was something that we needed. Back when I was on the Citizens Advisory and Valerie was working at the TPA, she was always telling me, you have to look at other areas to truly understand what they did right, what they did wrong, and especially the ones that are flat and hot like ours. So we're doing it. It's impressive to see. Moving along, we're going to move on to consent. Do any board members have anything that they would like to change or remove from the consent agenda? No? All right, hearing none, I'd like to have a motion and a second to approve it.
Second.
Okay, Maria for the motion and Shelley for the second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, wonderful. Motion passes. We'll move on to action items. We're going to move on to our motion to adopt a resolution to approve amendment number 4 to the TPA's fiscal year 23 to 27 Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP. We have Andrew here, our TPA Deputy Director of Programs, will be presenting this item.
Hello, good morning, everyone. So this is amendment number 4 to the Transportation Improvement Program. Our Transportation Improvement Program is our 5-year funding of federal and state dollars towards transportation projects in our county. And for this one, it is an amendment that triggers amendment for a few reasons here. They are pretty minor in their scope of the amendment. So it's really more of a housekeeping, but I'll go through both of these projects. And so what we're doing today is really adding a project. And then we have another project that is increasing its length. And so that's what's triggering the amendment for these. And as a reminder, this is really only impacting the projects, these 2 projects. No other projects are being voted on today, the TIP. So the first one is a project, Forest Hill Boulevard at the FEC Railroad. So this is a safety improvement project around $12,000 in fiscal year 2023. And really, after that went out there a few years ago and already installed a lot of treatments, they went back and in the review, they noticed that the western median juts out a little bit more than the one on the eastern side. And so they have to narrow that end, and it causes an alignment issue. So they're just going to be repairing that median to align with the eastern median, on the other side of the railroad tracks. So a pretty minor project. Then the next one is I-95 at Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard, interchange improvement. And so with this one, it's adding funds, and then what triggers the amendment is the change in length. And so there's a study done for this interchange in 2021. In that study, they did not show the limits correctly. And so this is an update of the location for that. So it's adding the missing ramps, which you see in the map there. And then it also adds that segment of Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard that were incorrectly omitted. So those 2 segments. And so really when you add those back in, it changes the length from up to 1.363 miles. So that's what the amendment is. And then there is an increase in the design funds from 1.13 to 1.85 million. So around $500,000. And just wanted to note that this is a project that's going to construction in 2027. So really, that's just the 2 items we have for amendments today.
All right, thank you, Andrew. Are there any public comments?
No, Madam Chair.
All right, so do any of our board members have any comments or questions at all? Okay, Christy Fox, you're recognized.
Thank you so much. I just want to confirm, I know you just said that, I just want to confirm, we are voting today only to adopt these 2 amendments and not the TIP itself.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Correct. So only these 2 amendments. It's kind of a what we're all used to calling a glitch list, and just some housekeeping as we go forward. So any other comments from our board? Questions?
I'll make a motion.
All right, motion from Mayor Flores. May I get a second? Who's my second?
Right.
Mayor Weiss. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Hearing no further discussion, we've got our motions and we need a roll call vote for this one. So Amanda, if you could go ahead, please.
Steve Wilson,
Yes.
Yvette Drucker,
Yes.
Fran Nacklis,
Yes.
Woodrow Hay,
Yes.
Shelley Petrolia,
Yes.
Joel Flores,
Yes.
Jim Kratzky,
Yes.
Ronaldo Diaz,
Yes.
Joni Brinkman,
Yes.
DeAndre Poole,
Yes.
Greg Weiss,
Yes.
Marcy Woodward,
Yes.
Maria Sachs is absent, Michael Barnett,
Yes.
Shirley Lanier, Fred Pinto,
Yes.
Michael Napoleon,
Yes.
Christy Fox,
Yes.
Joseph Peduzzi,
Yes.
Maria Marino,
Yes.
Chelsea Reed.
Yes. All right. Motion passes. Amanda?
Yes.
All right. Did we want to also announce that we had 2 more attendees come in?
Yes,
while they're
I can
voting?
add that to the record.
Okay.
Maria Marino and Woodrow Hay have joined us in person.
Thank you. All right, wonderful. Thanks so much, Andrew. All right, we're moving on to a resolution adopting new targets for our federally required performance measures that are the PM of bridge, pavement, and system performance. Andrew's already up, so he's going to go ahead, our Deputy Director of Programs, and is Christine Fasiska joining you?
Yes.
Okay.
you will be.
Hi, Christine.
Thank you. So this one is your second action item for today. This was brought before the governing board back in February when we adopted safety targets. And so today you requested more information from that discussion. And so we're talking about the target setting for bridge, pavement, and system performance today. So that's system performance is travel time reliability. And Christine Fasiska with AFDOT District 4, she's going to have a presentation that goes more through the process of how the state has set their targets. And then the final slide for you today is going to be the targets that are up for adoption for Palm Beach. And just a little more background, the ones that you are setting targets for today involve the national highway system. So this is the major roadway network for the United States. Showing on the screen a map of the US and what those look like, Florida as well, and then what those are for Palm Beach County. So that's Turnpike, I-95, Beeline Highway, Southern Boulevard, US 27. So a lot of our major roadways throughout the county, and then the connectors to our major facilities such as the port and the airport. And so with these performance measures, the US DOT requires that each state adopt national highway system targets for these. And then the state is the one that's evaluated on the target setting. So the federal government is evaluating the state as a whole on whether they're meeting their targets. And really what this is all about is linking our investments to setting targets. So and that's what the whole purpose of performance measures is to see how we can link our targets to our limited funding availability. And so after FDOT and all the states set their targets, all the metropolitan planning organizations such as ourselves is required to set a target within 180 days of them setting their targets. So FDOT has set their targets. Christine's gonna be going through those. And today you are setting targets for Palm Beach County. And so what we can do as a TPA is either adopt the state's targets, which we would then incorporate into our planning documents, and we would show alignment with how they're meeting, we're meeting together. And then the other option is to set our own targets. And so setting our own targets involves more details on how we plan to have our funding move towards meeting those different targets to the state. And what that really means for us is our attributable funds. So those funds that we currently use towards our other priorities on our list of priority products list. So we would be revamping that and the priorities on there to meet whatever the target setting we have. So I'm going to pass it over to the FDOT and Christine, and she's going to provide a presentation.
Good morning. As Andrew mentioned, I'm Christine Fasiska. I'm the Transportation Planning Manager for FDOT District 4, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share more details with you on the performance measures and the planning and programming for those measures. So what I'd like to do today is to provide a brief background on performance measures, and we're going to focus on PM2, which is the performance measures for bridge and pavement, and then PM3, which looks at system performance. And I'll explain how the performance measure targets were set, and again, share some of the information that Andrew had already mentioned about what the TPA's options are for setting the targets and goals. And in this, discuss the requirements that the TPA has in order for FHWA to assess the progress in meeting those targets that are established. So this diagram shows the national goals established under MAP 21, and then it was reaffirmed through the FAST Act and the BIL. There's 5 performance areas under federal rule, and those are shown in purple. And then the Florida Transportation Plan, or the FTP goals, those are shown in blue. And then just to give a little bit of background, as Andrew had mentioned, FDOT Central Office had previously coordinated with the MPOs. There was a workshop last summer in 2022 to establish the statewide targets for this next performance period. So they shared what we had initially thought what the preliminary targets would be, so that we could get those reviewed by all the MPOs in the state and then get their comments and in anticipated concurrence. And those targets were then officially set in December of 2022 by the state. And then they notified the MPOs so that they could make formal action to either support the goals of the state or to set their own for each area. So the 5 performance areas are shown here. PM1, PM2, and PM3 were actually named that because they were the first, second, and third performance rules that were issued by FHWA. Each PM rule defines the specific performance measures for that performance area, and the PM rules are very prescriptive. They specify the data to be used and how the measures are calculated. The intent is to have identical measures using the same data sources that can be compared from state to state or region to region. What does differ are the performance targets. Each state or MPO or transit provider establishes its own set of targets. Like I said, today we're focused on PM2 and PM3, and those are highlighted there in yellow. And it's important to note that PM2 and PM3 measures represent performance only on the federal designated national highway system that Andrew had mentioned earlier. And these federal performance measures tell us only what performance on the NHS roads look like. And then just as a little background, the NHS is about 7% of the total centerline miles for all public roads. And the NHS includes the interstate highway system and other roads important for the national economy, defense, and mobility. So in Palm Beach County, the NHS includes I-95, Florida's Turnpike, and major roads like US 1, State Road 80, and State Road 710. It does not include Florida's entire state highway system or the SHS. Investment of resources to improve pavement and bridges on the NHS will not move the needle on the performance numbers for the federal measures. So for measuring bridge performance, FDOT and FHWA use different metrics and a different rating scale. So the FDOT standard covers all FDOT maintained bridges on the SHS, and the FHWA measures, they focus on bridges on the NHS. FDOT standard is also calculated based on the total number of bridges, and FHWA measures is calculated based on deck area of bridges. Now, there's a Florida statute that also requires FDOT to ensure that 90% of FDOT maintained bridges meet FDOT standards for good condition or better. FDOT maintained bridges include those on the SHS, plus other local bridges maintained by the department. FDOT programs maintenance work on our bridges using the state's good, fair, or poor scale rather than FHWA's scale. FDOT does not program any significant bridge work for bridges with an NBI rating of fair or better, but does actively inspect and perform routine maintenance on all our bridges. And just to keep in mind, a rating of poor does not mean that a bridge is unsafe for travel, but it does mean that the bridge should be programmed for replacement or major repair. So basically, the goal is to determine when repair is needed and which repairs are the most cost-effective to extend the bridge service life. And this will be an ongoing effort to develop, monitor, and draw conclusions. It's anticipated that as data is collected, deteriorated models will be refined, which would lead to long-term cost savings and longer-lasting bridges over time. So this table shows the previous statewide bridge targets for 2019 and 2021, the actual performance from 2017 through 2021, and then the targets for 2023 and 2025. The targets are for the federal measures and they apply to bridges on the NHS. And you can see in 2023 and 2025, targets are identical to what was set during the past period. And they are also below the 2021 baseline. We are seeing that there is a decline in the percent of bridges in poor condition since we've made progress in repairing and replacing some of those bridges. But we're also seeing a gradual decrease in bridges in good condition, which is expected because of Florida's bridge inventory. It's starting to grow older. So the other portion of the PM2 is the pavement performance measures. And pavement condition refers to the physical characteristics of roadway pavement, such as smoothness, cracking, rutting, or misalignment. Specific metrics and thresholds vary based on the type of pavement. And a section must be in good condition on all relevant metrics to be labeled good overall. And similar to the bridge performance, FDOT has historically used different metrics than the federal PM pavement measures. FHWA uses the International Roughness Index, which is IRI. And they also use cracking percentage, rutting for asphalt, and then faulting for pavement that is made of concrete. Where FDOT uses ride quality, cracking severity, and rutting. So FDOT is collecting the data to satisfy the federal requirements based on the required approaches and technologies in the regulations. So in consideration in the differences in the data collection requirements used by FDOT and those mandated by the rule, as well as other unknowns and unfamiliarity associated with the new required processes, conservative 4-year targets for the interstate and 2- and 4-year targets for the non-interstate NHS pavement conditions were established. And you will see those there. So the pavement condition measures are percent of pavements of the interstate system in good condition, and then percent of pavements of the interstate system in poor condition. And then also percent of pavements of the non-interstate NHS in good condition, and percent of pavements of the non-interstate NHS in poor condition. The federal performance measures focus on the interstate highway system and non-interstate NHS rather than the full SHS. So the table shows that the targets for the first performance period, 2019 and 2021, the data through 2021, and then targets for the next period, which is 23 through 25. And there's some NAs listed there because we were not required to set a 2-year target for the interstate system in the first period, but moving forward, we are. So at this point, FDOT only has 1 year of data available with the federal methodology for non-interstate NHS pavement. So therefore, no changes has been made for the interstate and non-interstate NHS pavement condition targets.
Quick question, is the data that you're showing us statewide? Sorry.
We can come back. We can come back if you.
I just want to clarify, as we're looking at the data, is this statewide?
This is statewide data,
Thank you.
correct? This is not just for Palm Beach. I believe Andrew has some slides with the data just for Palm Beach.
Thank you.
And then the PM3 measure, or the system performance measure, this is the final set of measures, and it looks at reliability of travel for people riding in vehicles on the NHS, as well as truck freight on the interstate system. Reliability is measured on how travel times on a specific route differ day to day. Higher reliability means trips usually will take about the same amount of time on any given day. Lower reliability means the time to complete a trip could vary widely based on factors such as bottlenecks, crashes, or weather. So there was both external and internal factors and influences that were reviewed. And then there's a lot of technical details that that go into this, and I'll state just a few, but not to bore you. The measures are calculated by determining the level of travel time reliability for each reported segment, rounded to the nearest hundredth. And the level of travel time reliability is defined as the ratio of the 80th percentile travel time to the 50th percentile travel time using travel time data in 15-minute intervals from the National Performance Monitoring Research Data Set. So those travel times are AM peak, midday, PM peak, and then weekends. And a segment is reliable if its level of travel time reliability is less than 1.5 during all 4 time periods. If one or more time periods has a level of travel time reliability of 1.5 or above, then that segment is considered unreliable. But before the targets are set, there's baseline data, it's collected, it's used to establish a trend line, there's analysis that's conducted, and then a sensitivity assessment. But keep in mind the methodologies for PM3 measures are still relatively new, and the travel time data source has changed since the measures were first introduced. So we want to make sure that the targets are reasonable based on analysis of trends and projections of future efforts. So there's 3 measures that are shown here. Percent of person miles traveled on the interstate that are reliable. Percent of person miles traveled on the non-interstate NHS that are reliable. And then truck travel time reliability index. The first 2 measures are expressed in person miles. A higher percent for these measures is better performance. And then the final measure, truck travel time reliability, is expressed as an index. And that compares the actual travel time with normal travel time. So the higher the index means lower reliability because the actual travel time would be a higher number. So given the uncertainty in future travel behavior, FDOT believes that the first performance period targets are still appropriate for 23 and 25, so that you'll see that those remain the same. And then, as Andrew mentioned, there's 2 options. The MPOs throughout the state can either support the targets established by FDOT, or they can establish their own. If they're going to support FDOT's targets, then that will help to show consistency in the planning documents that you all are responsible for, and then the ones that DOT contributes to. Or they can establish their own. And if they do establish their own, they would need to determine and share the methodology used to develop those targets, and then program TPA attributable funding towards meeting the targets that were established. So ultimately, with either option, the MPOs throughout the state agree to plan and prioritize projects so that proposed improvements contribute towards meeting the targets. And as Andrew mentioned, it's really about linking investment priorities to the performance targets. So every 2 years, FHWA will conduct an assessment of progress for FDOT's targets. FHWA will determine that FDOT has either made significant progress toward the achievement of each 2-year or 4-year statewide target, or we haven't. And if the actual performance level is better than the baseline performance, that's good. And if the actual performance level is equal to or better than the established target, that's good as well. FHWA does not do a separate assessment for progress towards MPO targets, but will review MPO adherence to performance management requirements as part of their periodic transportation planning process reviews. And with that, I will try my best to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you so much, Christine. And just for any of the board members who wanted to see that data again, it was in your full packet. So it is in there. It's about halfway through. Do I have any cards up. Would anyone want to have any questions? Let's go. I'm sure that I saw lots of notes.
If I may, we do have a slide here to show
Oh, Andrew's
the,
gonna.
yeah,
present. I apologize,
the-
Andrew, my fault.
these are the performance measures. Again, this is on the national highway system. So the federal government requires the state FDOT, every state to adopt targets, statewide targets for these performance measures on a statewide level. They are graded, we are not. This is how they direct their statewide dollars on the national highway system. However, because we are also a federally mandated agency, we're required to adopt targets to show consistency. If we, and every other MPO in the state has adopted the statewide targets. If we choose to adopt different targets for our county for the national highway system, what that means, it doesn't mean that the state is going to spend more money on our area. It means that we will have to take the money that we currently use, our attributable funds for our local initiatives, other programs that we're trying to prioritize safety and things like that. The dollars that we try to prioritize, we will have to take that and move them onto their national highway system. So adding more money to meet if we're trying to do a different target for their system. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Thank you for the clarity. And I'm sorry, Andrew, please go ahead. Do you have any other?
No, that's fine. This is similar to what's in the backup. What you'll see is 2021, the Palm Beach numbers, and then we have the 2021 for FDOT. And then the target setting that FDOT has done, and then the TPA staff recommendation is to adopt the statewide targets.
Okay. Amanda, do we have any public comments?
No, Madam Chair.
All right, great. So we're going to start with the cards that started up first. Was Mayor Koretsky first, please?
First for the FDOT representative. Thank you very much. Very professional and very informed presentation. Appreciate that. I wanted to say that first because I fundamentally disagree from a policy standpoint with the direction we're heading. So, but you presented it as it is. Let me start with bridges first. So it was interesting. You did share how the improvement that we've seen actuals from 1.2% in poor condition to 0.5% over a 5-year period was due to bridge replacements. Correct. And that's what you stated. But now it seems like we're doing a radical departure because we have a target of 10%. And notwithstanding that may have been the target before, but I always get concerned about setting targets that are so low you could spend nothing and meet them. Because the definition of a poor bridge is one that suggests major investment is needed. I'm reading that from an FDOT publication. So we're going to allow the conditions to degrade statewide from the point that 1 in 100 bridges to 10 in 100. It's acceptable for up to 10 in 100 bridges now to be in poor condition. So that allows us to defer investment. You may try to tell me that that's not the intent, but it allows that kind of behavior. That's why from a policy standpoint, I'll never support that kind of low target setting. And it really bothers me that, fundamentally bridge. If anybody believes, if FDOT has facts that you have excessively maintained bridges, please let me know. I have, because I'd love to cut costs if there's cost to be cut. But, when it comes down to bridge conditions, to me, that's higher level than pavement conditions. So I'm just kind of bothered by that. So I don't support, that's why I don't support the bridge standards at statewide level, especially because we're in better conditions at Palm Beach County. So in endorsing the statewide, then I would be saying, I'm okay with that money being swept, to cover other county areas when I don't believe that we've over-maintained. I don't want to allow bridges that need major repairs to be put off because we're below a target that's higher than probably we've ever been in the state. And again, if that's the message that you're getting from the legislature and from the federal government, well, I want to then call it out for what it is. That's really not where I want to see, or, the representatives, the people that I represent. Then kind of moving on to the system performance, and I'm kind of talking to those two because last time we did this is that we chose as a TPA to set a higher standard. for bridges and performance measures. I disagree somewhat that we should have to now take some of our money to fund more if we have a different standard. Completely disagree. I'm expecting better from FDOT and the sources that you get funding from. The performance metrics. So, you know, and again, I'm just looking at the state. So, okay, I'm seeing here to the degree that, you know, what the baseline had been on, and I'm just looking at, you know, slide 10, we've been, you know, 80, 90, you know, high 80s, 90% you know, on reliability. And we're setting a target at 75% in 23. And then we're lowering it in 25 to 70%. So, you know, I don't buy this that, gee, you can champion transit without neglecting, you know, bridge and roadway system. So I will never support that low of a bar because it's basically saying, gee, Jim, do you support neglecting the roadway system? Because you can make that target by you'll make it completely neglecting, but it's heading in the wrong trend. So, you know, I'm sorry, but you've presented the facts as they are. And I'm just talking about a state level, but I'm not just concerned about Palm Beach County. I'm concerned that this is showing how the state is going to degrade statewide. That's even worse. It's even more alarming to me that FDOT chooses standards that are so low. And anyway, that's kind of the scope of my comments on what I heard here. So again, I advocated last meeting. I advocated last time this came before us. We need to expect higher standards. No, and I don't buy that. If we expect higher standards, it means that we should be paying for it from local funds. I expect that out of the federal government and FDOT.
Christine, do you want to respond to his questions or comments?
Well, for the bridge structures, I can assure you that in District 4, we do, aside from the performance measures, we do have a very robust program to inspect all of the bridges. We make sure that they are in good condition. And if anything needs programmed, we make sure that they are programmed well in advance of any of the actual NBI numbers, you know, getting into the poor range. So aside from the performance measures, again, we inspect our bridges on a reoccurring basis. Some bridges are inspected every year, some every other year. And then we, you know, apply for funding that is needed to ensure that those bridges are maintained. So there is the performance measures, but we continue to work to make sure that the bridges in District 4 stay at these high numbers.
And while I expected that, then you would support the fact that it's reasonable that the county can have a higher standard than the state because you're funding to that. So therefore, there is no extra money. They're already saying they're doing it. We go with the higher Palm Beach County standard, which you're telling me you're going to meet. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, Mayor Weiss.
Thank you very much. Going back to your slide number 6 on the, this is our bridge performance. And I believe, does it mean because in the state is 21, my calculation is 21% higher than Palm Beach County? Would that mean that you're going to prioritize our bridges over the rest of the state?
When you say 21% higher,
Right? Because we're at 65.5%. And you all are at, the rest of the state is at, let me see. I have to go back and look at my calculator. Yeah, I get 121. You were at 10, you were at 103, I think. Did I get that right?
So there might be more additional data in the backup, but for the bridge one here, if you see the first column, 82.2 for 2021 for Palm Beach County, and then 63.7 for FDOT in 2021. Were those numbers you were referring to?
No. I was on, I believe I was on.
Those are state numbers.
Oh, those are state numbers. Got it. Okay. All right. And then on slide number 10, and I have the same thoughts as Mayor Koretsky. I mean, why would we lower the target in 2025 if, I mean, and I have the same feeling that what we're doing is we're just saying, okay, we're going to allow things to degrade to a lower level rather than maintain them at that higher level. I don't understand why we would want to have it set a lower target. Is there any explanation for that?
My understanding is it's due to this being somewhat new and that there's an uncertainty of what the future behaviors will be. So I guess just,
We're always trying to improve, right? I mean, when we set our targets, we normally keep making them better. We normally don't go backwards and allow things to become worse. That would mean 30% could degrade, and right now we're saying 25% is what we're looking at. But we're going to allow it to go up to 30%. And that's what the state is asking us to endorse doing.
Valerie, I think you're.
I think from your presentation, Christine, you explained that these are the forecasts based on the data available that the state expects, like wear and tear and things to continue to worsen in terms of reliability, for example, because there's more people moving here or whatnot. So the targets are based on those calculations, again, at a statewide level, because that's what these dollars are coming from, a statewide level. But we luckily in Palm Beach County, we're doing a lot better than some other areas in the state. Maybe another area, I don't know, is doing a lot worse, and that the state's gonna, regardless of our standards or whatever we set, they're gonna spend those funds in those other areas that are worse. So these are based on statewide. So there may be areas that are doing much, much worse than us. And that's where they're trying to, at an average, say, this is our targets based on the data available, and we'll be spending funding in the areas that are doing very poorly.
That is correct. And one thing I can also add is that because the metrics were different, so the DOT metrics were a little bit different than the FHWA metrics. So as we're just starting out with these, just trying to get everything aligned and then, move on from there. But I do understand what you're saying.
I mean, wouldn't the legislature then, if you're going back and you're saying you're meeting your targets with the, that you propose, then the legislature is not going to be allocating more money to help you meet those targets, because even though the targets went down, so then you're meeting them now, right? Because they're going to allocate the funding to FDOT based on how you're doing on your performance metrics. And if your performance is not meeting those targets, they would then have to provide more funding for you to be able to meet those targets.
Well, I know when FHWA will assess how the department is doing, they will look to see how much money the department is putting into these different areas. Not necessarily that they will give more money, but they might say to the DOT, hey, take money out of this program and put it into that program. Right now, we're already putting the maximum amount that we can. For instance, safety, we put as much money as we possibly can into safety because that is our number one priority. With these other options, to your point, there is still only so much money, so we may have to move money around, and that would be something that FHWA would want to hear from the department as a whole to see where they're going to move the money to try to reach any of the goals that we haven't met.
And then lastly, on page 7, on your slide 17, I just want to clarify that the state is adopting the federal targets and measures. Is that accurate?
Correct. So we had to switch the way we looked at things to then be in line with FHWA's and their performance measures. Correct.
And so that will be going forward. You will be measuring to those standards and targets.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Weiss. Valerie, did you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, so as Christine, you said, this is PM2 and 3 that we're looking at. There's more performance measures on across the board for the funding pot. So as you mentioned, safety. Our the statewide targets, number one, because we're one of the worst states in the country for safety. Their target is very high. It's 0 deaths for safety. So in that pot where they have to divide all the funding for all of these different things, safety is a number one priority. In our attributable funds, currently, like the local initiatives program that we ask our local municipalities in the county to apply for, we have scoring for bridges and other things, but we also have scoring for, are you in a disadvantaged area? Are you close to a school? Have people died at this location? So we have to divide the 100 points across the scoring across these different categories when we rank projects. And going back to, if we were to have a different target for the national highway system than what the state has, we would have to direct more of our scoring to tell the feds, we have a different goal. We're not consistent with the state. We have a different target. So now we have to use our attributable funds to add additional dollars to the state. Whether or not we agree with that, that's just the direction we're getting from the state and the federal government, requiring us to adopt these for the national highway system within 180 days of the state. So just to kind of put it into perspective, of course, we would want things to be 100% perfect and our target to be great, but it's in relation to a lot of other factors, and unfortunately at a statewide level, and we aren't graded on these, the state is. So we're recommending as staff to be consistent with the state.
Correct. Good point. All right, so next we had Commissioner Fox.
Thank you so much. I appreciate this presentation. I had a lot of questions in the last meeting when we talked about this, and I appreciate the clarity that you're giving us. I just had a question. I think we talked a lot about the bridges. I wanted to ask you about the PM3 data. I just wondering if you can explain the methodology a little bit better in terms of just the targets that we're looking at, when it looks like the past 5 years, the data is, pretty good, that 2021 baseline of 87%, but our target is 75% for reliability. And then it was 92% on the non-interstate. That was the baseline, but we're looking at 50%. I'm just wondering if you can talk a little bit about the methodology, about why we are similar to what you mentioned about the bridges, but why we're looking kind of at the targets. We're doing so much better, but then the targets are still looking at 50%.
So I am certainly not the expert on performance measures. We have a lot of folks in our central office, a lot of different offices up there. We have, the bridges and the pavement folks and our freight committees and all of those different folks in central office. So the only thing that I can share with you is just the way that it has been measured, where they take the percentages, and you're referring to PM3, correct? You're referring to PM3, the system performance, correct? So, they, as I had mentioned, so it's the ratio of the 80th percentile of travel time. And then it's divided by the 50th percentile travel time using in 15-minute intervals. And that's taken from the National Performance Monitoring Research data set. So there's, a lot of information that they take and try to, put into a ratio that will give some a reliability. I guess I want to use the word index, and then they do a lot of the analysis on it to set the trend, and then to look to see establish the trend line, and then look at how sensitive it is. So I'm not involved with all of those details, but it's really just to see how reliable is the system? Can I get from A to B in the same amount of time every day? But there's so many factors that play into that, external and internal factors. A lot of the external factors could be weather, could be, something as much as the pandemic. We saw a lot of different reliability over COVID, not as many people on the roads. Also, just crashes, that all plays a role into this. So those are some of the information that goes in as far as external factors. But as far as all of the numbers, I certainly am not the expert. If you want additional information, I can certainly try to reach out to our central office folks to get more of the the details of how it's all, the data is gathered and what exactly they do with it.
Thank you. I certainly understand, like, being consistent with the state. I appreciate that. I don't want to hold up any funding on our end. And as Valerie mentioned, that we will be talking more specifically about Palm Beach County and adopting our own standards, I guess, after we pass this. So I appreciate the updates.
And
Thank you.
Madam Chair, John Crane from FDOT is on the line.
Oh, great.
And available to, I think, make further comments.
Okay, wonderful.
And John, you should have access to speak. You do
You're
need to
muted.
unmute yourself. And if it looks like you're unmuted, but you might not be connected to audio, in the bottom right hand or left hand of your screen, there should be the option to select where your microphone is, near the microphone icon. And if you're unable to connect to audio, you can send an email to info@palmbeachtp.org and I can read out your comments that way as well.
All right, or we can have him call in. John, while you go ahead and get that going, we'll take one or two more of our comments here from our board. Next, we're going to have Mayor Flores, and then after him, Commissioner Peduzzi, unless we can get Mr. Crane online. Thank you. Go ahead, Joel.
Thank you. First of all, I was one of the board members that had issues with the adopting the standards that the state has come up with. I don't want to make the same comments, but I basically agree with the comments that Mayor Weiss and Mayor Koretsky made earlier. The way I'm seeing this is these aren't targets, in my opinion. I see this as a base standard, the minimum that the state is willing to tolerate. I think when you look at targets, it's something that you're aiming for. It's not something that you are easily meeting. So I think that's the way I think this board thinks of targets. And we always want to make sure that we're aiming for something above what we're currently at. I think that's the message that I sort of want to echo to FDOT, that I think that's the way that we should be looking at this. Today, I'm going to be voting in favor of adopting or mirroring the standards that the state is. And only because I don't want to change the priority of this board. We have worked very diligently for a very long time to get these priorities to start building. And I don't want to take funding for those projects to basically address shortfalls from the state and the federal system. But that's the only reason I'm voting to adopt this. It's because I don't want to utilize our funding for projects that we have set priorities for. But I don't agree with these standards. I think the message needs to go back to FDOT and the way that you guys do your targeting. And maybe you don't call it targets. Maybe you need to call it something else. But when you talk about targets, it's something that you aim for. I would never tell my daughter to aim for something lower than she currently has, right? We're always striving to do better, especially when we're talking about safety, the safety of the individuals that we represent. So that's my message here today. Hopefully we can bring that back to the state. I don't know how far this message will go, but I hope we start addressing some of these targets in the future. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Commissioner Peduzzi. And then we're going to go to Commissioner Woodward and to Councilmember Drucker, depending on whether or not we get FDOT back on the line. Joe?
Thank you, Mayor. As a consistent supporter and someone who's constantly advocating for public safety, or for safety, not public safety, for safety, I fundamentally agree with Mayors Koretsky, Weiss, and Flores with regard to the bridge targets. But practically speaking, I'm not really sure how we should handle this. And so my way of thinking is let's look and see how others have addressed these issues. And can we just talk for a moment about how some of the other MPOs in the state have handled this? How many other MPOs have actually addressed this issue? How many have actually had the opportunity to vote on it? Have most of them already voted on it? Have they voiced similar concerns that we have? Could we just take a moment and address that?
I'll mention, I don't know the exact number, but we are required within 180 days. I did reach out to the central office, to our MPOAC liaison. He said every other MPO in the state had adopted so far. The only thing that a couple MPOs have disagreed on, they struggle with the safe, our target zero. Most adopt with the state of target zero for deaths and serious injuries. But in terms of this, these targets, everyone adopted, and to show consistency, because it's more of a negative to the federal government to not be consistent with the state. I believe that the Broward MPO is a 4-minute presentation. So in general, most MPOs choose to be consistent, to be in line with the state and with the federal government for the national highway system. It's really not so much in our control, that the highway system, so the national highway system in terms of that. So I did reach out to ask, and that's been the case this year and in the past.
And I can share with you within District 4, so we have 5 MPOs within District 4, from Broward County all the way up into Indian River County. Only one of the committee, Martin TAC, their technical advisory committee, asked to have a presentation, and you all asked to have a presentation. Nobody else within the District 4 MPOs asked for a presentation, and they adopted, supported the FDOT performance measure targets.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Paduzzi. Let's see, Commissioner Woodward.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, I don't know who else got that 4:45 emergency alarm this morning, but I haven't had enough coffee yet. I had a couple of questions because I know in my agenda review, we talked about Vision Zero and how, we do know that that's pretty much an unattainable number. It's a goal that we would like to shoot for, but we know it's really an unattainable number. And yet we're okay with setting an unattainable number to give it a priority for safety. So I find it interesting that when it comes to bridge safety, which is very much an important role, that we're not looking at maybe shooting for a higher standard. When we know that Vision Zero is unattainable, why can't we do better with bridges? And bridges should fall under safety. And if we have, safety as a priority, do bridges, I think that's PM2 that you had, is that considered part of safety when it comes to the overall standards? Or is that a completely different category?
So for DOT, we have a safety component in all of our projects. Again, aside from anything that the PM measures, the performance measures are stating, we look for safety opportunities in every project. We have a specific safety officer, our safety administrator at District 4, and her team review every project from RRR road resurfacing projects to major capacity projects, bridge projects, everything to make sure that there is a safety component in it. So again, no matter what the performance measures are set at, we look at safety for all of our projects. And I will, restate that for all of our bridges, we inspect them regularly. And no matter what the performance measures say, we're going to make sure that the bridges are safe for any vehicles to travel over.
Okay, and my last question, if I may, is when we look at percentages, if we are, I'm not sure where that slide is, but I believe we were in the 80% or so for safety or the bridge quality, significantly higher than what's required, which is good. But that also means that other areas can be much, much worse, because if we have several counties that are higher, that means the other counties or the other areas of the state could be considerably lower to have the overall state go down to 50%. So where would that put us in funding these projects if we were to allow ourselves to get to the poorest conditions? And I mean, I'm just concerned about us not getting to the point where we're having to fund a number of bridges when, if we set lower standards, we would make sure that we keep replacing or doing maintenance, whatever's needed to be done. I know that I'm probably going to vote with this because I understand we don't have a lot of say and this is a rubber stamp, but I do think that we should put it out there that these are not goals that we wholly support. We'll do this, but I think it should be looked at, because if you're looking at percentages, we're doing better, but that means other areas can go way down. And I know I drive all over the state, so I would not like to know that if I drive to visit my family in South Carolina through, I don't know how many counties to get out of the state, I would like to know that all of those are are equal to what we're doing here.
Sure, I can share with you that for our overall state bridge program, there is a 6-year window. So as they do the inspections throughout the state, they make sure that the bridges are in a good condition. And if they see that they are going to decline within 6 years, they already start to program whatever is needed, repairs, replacement, so that to not allow them to get too far down on the ranking, into the poor category. So they look at that over, all of the bridges and make sure that within 6 years, there is funding in place so that that work can be done on the bridges that need it.
Thank you, Commissioner. As your chair, I try not to speak until the very end, but the one thing I do want to say is that I did just check with our executive director. Whatever we decide to vote today, what we would like to do is in the next few months, since this is a newer program from FDOT, is to have the opportunity for us to have sort of a think tank where we have the opportunity to go through all these measures with you, what your intentions are for the next few years, since you're saying we don't know what the future of transportation looks like as you fund this, so that we can do that deeper dive, ask the harder questions, and perhaps even have some influence. Because if we're doing such a great job here, it'd be wonderful to be able to share those best practices with the other MPOs and the other people who are voting on this as well, whomever are making the decisions for their areas. So we'll get through this vote today, but let's bring this topic back so that we all have a greater understanding and possibly some input as well. Is that okay with FDOT?
That would be fantastic.
Okay, excellent. All right, Commissioner Drucker.
Thank you, Chair. So thank you for the presentation. So a couple of things that I heard that and I want to go back with, I agree with a lot of what has been said this morning, especially going back to Mayor Flores. I will be supporting this just because it's hard for me to go against something in terms of the national and the FDOT that's going to affect our funding. Because for us, the funding and keeping it in our county and in our cities is the most priority for me, especially when it comes to public safety. I'm glad that District 4 checks on a recurring basis our bridges, because City of Boca Raton, we have some county bridges and bridges that our residents use for the barrier islands. I agree with Commissioner Woodward about when you travel throughout the state and out of the state that we need to have safety for all. I believe in Vision Zero, and I know that it's not attainable today, but I know that there are cities in this country that have attained Vision Zero. So I am extremely hopeful, and I hope that you all are hopeful that we can attain Vision Zero, and that it might not be in my future lifetime, but maybe 30 years from now, or whatever that number is, especially when our Secretary of Transportation, that's one of his main things, is to achieve Vision Zero. So even though it's unattainable today, maybe tomorrow, I am very hopeful that we as a collective body can achieve Vision Zero in certain aspects of our cities, because I can tell you, we can have a sideline. There are cities that are doing it and they are crushing it with 0 fatalities. So I just wanted to say that. But I will be supporting this today because, again, it goes back to me, the funding needs to stay in the county. And I agree we should have conversations about the targets or whatever we want to call that, especially with the newer program. And another clarification, we just started, or you guys just started to the travel time. Is that something new that was added, right? I remember from our last meeting 2 months ago.
Correct.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, excellent. If everyone could do me a favor, if you're not speaking, if you could make sure your microphone is not turned on, that will help me make sure I can look for cards. All right, so next we have Mayor Weiss again.
2 things. So just to clarify, I relooked at the data that we received, and it wasn't on slide 6 in regards to bridge performance. It was on the exhibit A. And so actually Palm Beach County is doing better than the rest of the state. So that's I want to address that and make sure that get accurate information out. As we know, getting accurate information is important. So my apologies for that. My question though is, so how long, we set these goals, how long will they stay in place, and when will they come back for renewal? When do we have another bite at this apple again?
So I believe these are every 4 years. Valerie, is that correct? Yes, every 4 years for the performance 2 and performance measure 3.
So we can't revisit this in a shorter period of time if we find out later that I can see where we're trying to go, but I think if we find out that it's not acceptable to allow things to get worse. Do we have a chance to revisit this?
So you would always have an opportunity to set your own targets as a board. And again, as Valerie had mentioned, so FHWA only looks at what the DOT has said. But if you have your own target set, you can certainly do that. And then as there are, there is a quadrennial certification, there's an annual certification that the DOT and the TPA do. We would look at those opportunities, but you could certainly work within those 4 years to decide if you would like to have your own targets.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Valerie?
I was just going to mention, we are currently, and this is kind of in line with this, but we are over the next year going to be revisiting our like countywide targets. These are part of them. So these are the ones that we adopt today will be in there, but we have the opportunity to, as Christine mentioned, anytime say that we want something different. We just have to, when we annually adopt our scoring, reflect that on how we're prioritizing our projects. Whether those, if we want the national highway system, performance to be different, and that's where we want to put our eggs, or if we want to put them on local municipality projects, like that's kind of where we get to direct those funds. So as our part of our LRTP update over this next year, we will be revisiting PMs. Not only will we be showing these, but other performance measures that we have a whole list, a whole table that we're as part of that 2050 update that we're doing. So yeah, I just wanted to chime in to say that.
Thank you so much. All right, we'll finish off with Mayor Koretsky. I don't see any other cards. Oh, and then we have did we get FDOT or any other public comments?
FDOT is still on the line. I'm not sure if he was able to connect to his audio. We can't see that on our end,
Understood. All right.
but we can give him a try after.
All
Mayor
right, thank you
Kretzky.
so much, Mayor Koretsky.
So just quickly, just in closing, so I just want to, point out in the resolution we're going to be voting on the 6 whereas clause, the TPA, whereas the TPA previously adopted statewide targets for pavement condition and chose to set more aggressive targets for bridges and system reliability that are closer to the existing performance in Palm Beach County. That's a snapshot of how we were 4 years ago in this county. I just want to remind people. So we realize we have no surprise to me that Dayton Broward rubber stamped the statewide one. Is anybody surprised about that? Anybody surprised that 4 years ago we chose to be different? It's also surprising to me that to some degree, we're going to be updating our long-term plan. And our values come out into the long-term plan and we pick a cost feasible plan. And so having been a long time on and off member here, we've always had different values in Palm Beach County, certainly in North Palm Beach County. So I'm not going to be supporting just rubber stamping that because, I come across too many people that complain about sitting in gridlock. So supporting this, then I'd be saying, on the reliability, no, it's not bad. We've let the standard way down. We're going to become like Broward and Dade. My constituents are not going to be happy. So I'm not going to support it as it's presented.
Thank you, sir. Any other any comments? It's interesting because I'm going to draw a small parallel. This feels to me almost like a home rule issue, right? We talk about home rule and our ability to govern ourselves here, how we want things done. And sometimes the state passes things that aren't necessarily like, they may not be the tree that we may want or other things like that. But in my opinion, this is kind of a home rule issue. Maybe we don't agree exactly with everything that's coming from the federal government or from our state regarding transportation. But this funding allows us to take that. Like I always say, if you have $10 for Palm Beach County, how do we spend that funding? This vote gives us that $10. And then perhaps if we have the opportunity for some further interaction with FDOT, we can tell you some of what we're doing here. And that way we are consistent, because if we vote against this, we are inconsistent, which also would possibly hurt us going forward as we already work through our funding. Like as it is right now, the folks who are approved for the LI grants previously, that funding is now held up, right? It's opening up a bit more now, but when we were approved for it, some of that FDOT funding wasn't coming through. So we are doing a great job. So thank you, Greg, for clarifying that data. Valerie, do you have anything else before we go to vote?
No, yeah, I just wanted to mention, as Mayor Koretsky said, Last time this was brought to the board, the board approved it with with a different bridge standard. We sent that to the state. Again, this does not influence the way they're spending their statewide dollars, separate dollars from us. This is for their national highway system. And basically it marked us as inconsistent. So it really wasn't like a positive for us. I don't know, Andrew, if you want to add anything else, but that's kind of what happened last time. Again, what we vote on these standards does not influence funding at the statewide level. It's just kind of, we have our attributable funds. So they say, they're going to turn around and say, if you care and you want to have your I-95 at 90%, then you can add additional funds of your own attributable funds to I-95, because we have our projects. I asked at the district level, why did we not get any of these mega projects, like the statewide projects that they were announced? And they said, you guys are doing way better than other areas. Orlando they didn't even have express lanes and other things that you already have. You're above, your district is ahead of the curve of other areas like Pensacola or other places that are not doing that great. So at the statewide level, these funds are not the funds that we're talking about in our county when we prioritize dollars. These are statewide dollars. And they're looking at their statewide system and trying to say, I think Mayor Flores's point was a good point. It's kind of like, all right, we have to spread our dollars across everything. And if someone is doing less than this percent, then we really need to help them, and we can't let anyone fall closer to those percentages. So it really isn't like so much almost like goals. It's more so, if you're doing in this range, we're going to try to help those that are not doing so well in this other range. And this data is based on how everyone is doing as a whole. But
All right, so I will do a roll call. Oh, okay, we have one more card. Paduzzi, Commissioner Paduzzi, do you have your card up?
Thank you. Just briefly, and I found it interesting, and thank you for bringing that up, Mayor Koretsky. Just for consistency's sake, why can't we do something similar to what we did 4 years ago then and adopted, a different standard for the bridge safety, as opposed to voting on this as a whole? Just putting it out there.
I don't know if Christine or if John Grain's on the line, or if Andrew wants to chime in on that. My understanding was that we sent them the different standards. We just finished our federal certification. They review us, for consistency. We sent it to the state and basically it doesn't make any impact on how they're spending their dollars. So Christine, do you want to mention anything regarding how we did one different measure than on the bridges last time? What that means?
Well, I really don't have any comment for the last time. I mean, you're certainly able to add comments to it. I'll take this back to central office, excuse me, and share, all of your comments with them. And I appreciate all of these comments and this really robust discussion. Can take that back. But to your point, Valerie, just to be in line, you'll need to adopt something. So you either need to adopt that you support the targets, or that you would want to set your own targets. But I think it's fine if you want to add language, that similar to what you did 4 years ago.
And Andrew, I think you wanted to say something in regards to, we took points away from other projects, right, to raise the bridge because of that, or no, or how did that impact our scoring?
It didn't really impact our scoring because we were talking about national highway system, right?
Yeah,
So,
it's not, yeah.
For clarification, back in the first time we adopted these, it was for bridges in poor condition. We set a target of 5%. So no greater than 5%. Implementation wise, it really didn't impact anything, right? Because we're not going to spend, FDOT's the one who statewide has the bridge funds, to do it based on needs. And they're already going out and they have their schedule of maintaining those assets. So it didn't really impact anything on how we prioritized at that time. We do have, scoring towards bridges in our program for LI. And we have had bridges come across for that. Brant Bridge did, a few county bridges did, but nothing in the national highway system.
Mm-hmm. And as a reminder, we do bring every year our scoring to the board for your approval on how you want to. We bring it to the committees first, and we with recommendations, and we bring it to the board in terms of how we want to rank projects. Again, we're not ranking projects on the national highway system, so we're trying to provide our attributable funds to our local municipalities, our local projects off the major highway system that they're focusing on. But if we do try to do something a lot different than the state, they're going to say, well, how are you going to meet that? And that will reflect back onto our attributable dollars.
Right. And then if we change our attributable dollars to say we primarily want to fund bridges, then we can't do a lot of the other things that we're trying to do. So it's really, it's an exponential spiral, honestly. The consequences that would happen from that would be massive for how well we're already doing. That's why I'm saying, if we have an opportunity to meet with FDOT, because what day are we at? We have to have this done by how many days? Okay, till June. So, okay, so what I'd like to do is go ahead and do a roll call vote. This was just going to be a regular vote, but I think a roll call might be required. I'm just saying, be prepared for a roll call. Do we have any more cards? Do you have another card up? Oh, okay, we have more cards. All right, so I'm sorry, I didn't see which one went up first, so I'll go with Mayor Weiss, please.
I was just going to go ahead and make a motion to adopt this. But I think we want to include a message in this that we disagree with the targets going down in out years and suggest they relook at that. And hopefully they can do the right thing. And as you said, I mean, this is federal dollars that don't come to us anyways. But to ask us to do something that we know or that it just doesn't make sense. It really needs to go back to FDOT and they need to really look at it again. But that, I don't know how you put that into a motion, but that's what I'm saying.
Understood. Motion noted. We also have Mayor Flores. Before we go for a second, do you have something you want to add?
I just wanted to say thank you to our presenter. Frustration coming from our end is not on you. It's just on the system and everything. So I just wanted to, I know you've heard us. I think you probably sense the frustration that we're struggling with. It's not with you, it's with the system and the things that we're trying to improve. So I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation. It was great.
No, I appreciate that. And I hear all the frustration. Certainly we'll take it back. And again, we'll reach out to central office and we'll share all of this with them and help them understand your frustration. So I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. All right, Mayor Wilson.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So it appears that we're all torn between, we know it's a catch-22, but whether you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, the amount of monies that's coming to the state or that's been put out by the Biden administration, there should be no excuse for us not setting our standards higher. Even though we may be doing well, but Palm Beach County is continuing to grow. And so the expectation with the bridges and the roads to be expected that we have to continue. It seems to me that we're being punished because we're maintaining and we're trying to stay above the water. And it shouldn't be that way. So I guess I'm gonna be the first one to have to cast a vote, but I am torn between this. But I want us to make sure that we don't set our standards low for anybody.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Marino.
Thank you. Is there a possible way that the word targets gets substituted for standards? Mayor Flores brought that up earlier. It really is. I mean, the definition of targets is that's what you want to achieve. And that's not what we want to achieve. So is there a conversation that could be had about minimum standards or something of that nature? Because targets is not the right word here. Thank you.
I can certainly take that back to central office and see what their thoughts are on that.
All right. Oh, okay, Commissioner Fox.
Thank you. I wasn't sure if John was still on. I know that my questions earlier, I obviously wish we could have 0%, bridges in poor condition, but I also think if your staff is coming to work 50% of the time on time, that's not the target we want to hit either. So I'm just curious if he was on with any additional updates about the methodology they're using. Thank you.
He is still in line. John, you should be able to unmute yourself. Yeah, it seems like And John, I did send you an email about a dial-in option if you wanted to give that a try. I'm not sure if you were able to try it that way.
All right, so I just want to, before we go forward with this vote, make sure that we have correct verbiage. I'm going to ask to adopt new standards, if that's okay, for federally required PMs of bridge pavement and system performance, with a note from our board that we disagree with the current standards specifically as the outer years continue. Is that okay with everybody? All right, so all I need now is we have a motion from
Wait,
Wayne.
second.
Yep.
Sorry. Clarification, like, I'm sorry, are we allowed to just change like the wording that they put out? I think the recommendation is in our language to them that they look in future years that the word target be switched to standard. I don't know if, I mean, this is a legal question
for
maybe.
Paul. It's a Paul
Because
question.
I don't think we could change what they've already put forward to us with the two bodies and then we just change the verbiage and adopt that. I'm
So
confused.
go from target to standards.
We can make a recommendation in our motion.
Let's ask the attorney.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a good answer to that, unfortunately. The problem is that if you go back to use of the language targets, you're almost boxing yourself into the position of some of the points that have been raised here, that you're approving regressing in the future rather than moving forward. I think that was Mayor Flores' comments.
All right, and Valerie.
Oh, go
I just
ahead.
want to note too that, I mean, the federal legislation is littered with the word target, right? So these are regulations in the federal government, all stating the word target.
All right, so we can't change it. We'll leave it as target and we will, go ahead.
I think the question before us today, the federal requirement of us today, because we're a federally mandated agency, is to adopt or not adopt the state targets, or either adopt theirs for consistency or adopt something different. Staff recommendation is to adopt the state targets for their national highway system, because it's at a statewide level, it's graded at a statewide level, and they're the ones evaluated, not us. We can do a motion to adopt and then have language that, or direct staff to send additional comments or requests to FDOT for the workshop that Mayor Reed, the Chair Reed recommended, as well as a statement saying we are adopting this for consistency purposes because it's statewide. However, we disagree with the term target, even though it's a federally mandated thing, but we also don't agree with these targets being lower at our county level.
All right, we are able to speak with FDOT on the telephone now.
Yes,
Mr.
hi, this
Crane?
is John Crane. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right. I'm sorry. I'm a technically challenged kind of individual by nature, but so thank you for your patience. I didn't have much to add as it related to the particular questions, other than, we were talking about system performance at that time. I know we've spent a lot of time talking about the bridge safety aspects, but system-wide performance, we've changed the performance measure, the feds did, and this was our first attempt at, I believe we're talking about the dependability of the trip, right? And so we're collecting data and reporting on data using a sampling method statewide, and we have 1 year of data. And I understand the frustrations expressed by the board here today, but I think, that the state's confidence level in being able to properly reflect the state of the system is part of the reason they did not want to go setting a standard at this point, this cycle, at a much higher level. So this is just some of the discussion that I have heard in the background when we brought this up. I do think some sort of workshop after this meeting would be beneficial. We are not the performance measurement experts, but I do think we could engage our central office staff to come and meet with the board and maybe have a workshop discussion about why we have established the targets as we have and kind of to address the concerns that have been expressed here. I think we do understand, you know, if you're setting a target or a standard that's lower than where we're at, you know, are you acceptable of a trend line downward? And that's the message that the board doesn't want to send. So I think we can clearly reflect that. But again,
Thank
I
you.
didn't have a lot to add, but Christine, you did a great job. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Crane. Hang in there one second. Our attorney has his card up, so I will defer to him immediately.
Just for clarification, for Mr. Crane, since you all are looking at sending comments about the standards versus targets dilemma, who on the state level do we need to address those comments to? There's a lot of
So
different
our
people.
counterparts, I'm sorry, go ahead, finish.
I was just going to say, there's a lot of different people in Tallahassee, and I think we want to have the comments get to, you know, the people that are in the position to, you know, truly address the issue and consider it.
So we coordinate with the Office of Policy Planning, but the state transportation planner is Wei Wei Shen. She is the manager over the various sections that includes policy planning. So I think if your comments and concerns are directed to her, they
Okay,
will
thank
get
you
to
so
the right
much.
person.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, sir. Hang in there, Mr. Crane. We have a couple more cards up. I'm going to go over here to my vice chair, Commissioner Marina.
Not a comment, but I will clarify and make the motion. Just circle. So for clarity, I will make the motion to adopt a resolution adopting new targets for federally required performance measures of bridge, pavement, and system performance. And that's the motion. And separately, we now do further review and discussion with what we've talked about today. That is separate than the motion. The motion stays in place.
I second your motion.
Who was the
Matt
second?
Wilson.
Oh, Mayor Wilson. All right. Thank you so much, Vice Chair. We'll finish out the cards and then we'll go to vote. Does anyone else? Mayor Correct.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I appreciate, you know, the efforts, notwithstanding, I'm not going to support it. I appreciate the efforts to put up there. But I just wanted to point out the resolution has a part A and a B. And to make the motion, I do think you want to address A and B.
There's only one.
Maybe you intentionally didn't, but I just wanted to point it out because in that resolution, the second one is to direct TPA staff to integrate these performance measures and targets into the long-term, long-range transportation plan and TIP. So then I'm not sure you were intending to then include that in your as.
No, sir. We're only going to be voting on the one motion, which is just to simply adopt
Well,
these
then we're
federally
changing the
required.
resolution we're voting on and deleting B. That's what I'm asking. I'm looking at the resolution.
Yeah, all of our actions include resolutions. So,
Yeah.
right, we vote on the resolution.
And these targets, because we are required within 180 days, they will be going into our LRTP. Our LRTP has a 1-year process for adoption. We won't be adopting the LRTP as a whole until December of 2024. In that process, we'll have a PM workshop. We'll look at other performance measures as well, and there is opportunity to change them.
Yeah, it's just that the motion changed section 2A on our action. And I just wanted to make sure it was clear in the vote that then we're leaving in 2B as an action in the resolution, if that's the motion.
We can bring up the
Yeah, do you want to
resolution,
bring up the resolution?
Amanda? Thank you.
If we did, I will make sure.
Can you, and Andrew, can you clarify what's
Yes.
required right now?
Mayor Koreski's referring to the whereas clause. And you're seeing the portion where it's for section 2, it says TPA governing board hereby, and then it has these 2 points. Adopts the performance measures targets for Palm Beach County and That's what you saw on the screen today, those attached targets. And then it directs us as staff to integrate them into our planning documents.
And it's in there because it's required, right?
Our practice has been to have a resolution with all of our action items.
But this cycle is every 4 years because we're starting the LRTP process. The state has adopted, we're required within 180 days. The question is whether B is required in the resolution for, why is it in
Okay, I
there?
hear you. Yep. Our direction for this is you're going to see a draft tip this coming month.
Next
And then you're going to see the updated targets in that one. And for the LRTP, we're coming to you all with an amendment pretty soon for projects, and you'll see administrative modification to bring these new targets into the LRTP for that.
And as these targets are placed
2045,
for 2040, yeah, we have,
the
this will
current
be a
LRTP.
we have a long process as we go through the LRTP and even as if these are placed upon our LRTP and included in our tip, we then have the opportunity to go through them ourselves. That is the point of that document. It allows us the opportunity to weigh in and measure, correct?
Yes, so if we're adopting the state standards, then it's directing us to reflect that in our current 2045 LRTP, even though we're in the process of updating the 2050 LRTP, and that'll be an opportunity to revisit the performance measures as a whole. So it's basically saying to be consistent across our documents, reflecting the current standards.
And perhaps after this vote, when those are added to those documents, could you please make sure that we have them in purple? I don't know, in an extra color, just to say that these were the items that were added on this date so that we can all make sure we pay extra attention to them as we go through the process. Okay, I'm so sorry. We have one more card for Commissioner Barnett.
Thank you very much, Mayor. The gentleman who appeared by phone, I don't remember his name.
John Crane.
Forgive my lack of technical, whatever. I'm getting used to this microphone. But I was just curious. He mentioned the possibility of a workshop. I thought maybe it might have been prudent to have that workshop before we had this vote today. It seems based on consensus that there's an extreme reluctance to approve this resolution. I'm curious if we could have a discussion by council or others on this board as to the ramifications of not passing this adopting this resolution, if any, legal or otherwise.
The ramifications of not passing it would mean that we would not receive our funding.
I say to have us turn that around with FDOT, our staff would be tough because we have 2 months before the deadline, right? So it'd be the next 2 meetings. The amount of information I think it would take that you all would need for that would be probably too much. We are going to have that process, but it might not be the next 2 months.
Yeah, the ramifications. So again, these are unfortunately these are targets we don't implement, we don't control the national highway system. So it's kind of a little bit out of our control. But these are targets we are required to show consistency within 180 days. So that's in June. However, we can change them at any time, and we're going to be revisiting this. We will have a workshop. We actually are in the process of having our federal certification review to be a certified MPO, which we have to show consistency with the state and federal government and follow their rules. So in that, as part of this federal certification that we're currently undergoing, I think it's been a great conversation discussion today. I'm going to reach out to our federal government representatives that came here, and I'm going to request that they provide. They asked, what we need assistance with. I'm going to request that they come and share with us and help us understand why is it that we have to adopt these when we don't really have much control over it, and it's a statewide funding pot for a statewide system of this national highway system. So we will direct that back to them as well.
Excellent. That's a great clarification. Thank you so much. All right, Mayor Weiss, and then we're going to be calling this to vote.
My request is that we go ahead and we drop B, which is an action item. We can go ahead and move forward adopting the targets today. But that we bring back that action item going forward. We can review it, and if we want to make changes and what we want to include, because this does impact our tip. And I don't think it sets the priorities properly for the tip. So I don't know why we want to put that into our plan right now. There's no reason. I haven't heard a reason why we need to include
believe
that
we-
action.
I believe it's necessary to provide consistency because we're a federally funded, federally mandated organization. And that is why we have literally the stopgap of a tip and an LRTP so that we can put in our own personality, our own desires. So
Why-
it funnels down to us for our board to then take, in order to receive the funding, we approve what they give us. We take that. What
I
was-
don't see a problem with if we need to adopt the federal performance targets today. But why we need to direct TPA staff to take any action on it today?
It would just be reflecting it in our documents, because those federal performance measures are in our documents, so we're required to adopt them, so it'd be just updating our current documents to reflect those same numbers, so to be consistent with today's vote. That doesn't mean we can't change them later and adopt them, it's just adopting them and being consistent across the documents.
Right, and then the tip has a section where it says, how are you what products in your tip are going towards meeting these targets? And so it's, we're supposed to be updated with our targets in our tip.
In my opinion, the tip and the LRTP is where we take what's been given to us from the federal government and from the state and turn it into Palm Beach County. It's that $10 where we decide to spend our money, but I'm going to call this to vote as is. Seeing as I think that we've had as much clarification as we possibly can. It is the process. It is the process. Our county, as you can see by the data, is doing an excellent job. So we now have two things at our advantage. Number one, we have the opportunity to take what is given to us as we are required to federally and do with it as we please. And now with the opportunity to workshop with FDOT, we might have the opportunity to effectuate change at the state and federal level as well. So I know it might be a little itchy sweater, but sometimes going forward with something in order to actually make a difference can work. So with that, I will be calling it to vote with the motions as they stand, which was, we had the motion and we did have a second. So I'm going to take it to vote. So we'll start with Mayor Wilson.
And
Oh, I'm
Madam
sorry. Yes,
Chair,
ma'am.
if you don't mind, I know that earlier Mayor Weiss had offered a motion with language
Oh,
about
right.
disagreeing,
It
but
died.
there was no second. So
Correct.
just wanted to reflect that on the screen is what we have from Commissioner Marino.
I appreciate it.
And
So
I'll
this is
call
a,
roll for you.
I will follow up with the motion to recommend adoption for targets for federal performance measures, bridge pavement and system performance, and we will take it to vote member by member. So we'll be starting with Mayor Wilson.
Yes.
Wilson,
Okay, go ahead, Amanda.
Yvette Drucker,
Yes.
Fran Nacklis,
Yes.
Woodrow Hay,
Yes.
Shelley Petrolia,
Yes.
Joel Flores,
Yes.
Jim Kretzky,
No.
Ronaldo Diaz,
Yes.
Joni Brinkman,
Yes.
DeAndre Poole,
Yes.
Greg Weiss,
No.
Marcy Woodward,
Yes.
Maria Sachs is absent. Michael Barnett,
Yes.
Shirley Lanier,
No.
no. Fred Pinto,
Yes.
Michael Napoleon,
Yes.
Christy Fox,
Yes.
Joseph Peduzzi,
No.
Maria Marino,
Yes.
and Chelsea Reed.
Yes.
And this does pass with 4 opposing votes.
Yep. So motion passes 16-4. Thank you so much. We look forward to that workshop. We appreciate your time, Christine, and Mr. Crane as well. We'll be moving on to our information items. I do highly recommend everyone stays for the South Florida commuter services. This is an opportunity for your residents to have free mobility. So if we could please have Jeremy Mullings, our South Florida Commuter Services Project Manager, present your item.
Good morning. This is not Jeremy Mullins, it's over there. But my name is Newton Wilson. I'm from the Department of Transportation. I'm the TDM coordinator. Basically, as that, we cover the region from Monroe County all the way up to Indian River. And I'm charged with basically taking care of the park and rides as well as the PM of the South Florida Commuter Services. And really, we're very excited to see the strides that's been made right here with regard to your TDM efforts. We really are excited to see that going on. And the TDM strategies that's been going on. We met with the TDA and the TPA as well. And along that line, that is where South Florida Commuter Services comes into play, because this is an entity of DOT, and it's really focused to grow and emphasize this kind of initiatives. So Jeremy Mullins is the CTS, is the program director of South Florida Commuter Services, and he'll be presenting. But before he does that, I just have to be charged with my boss's encouragement. And it really is to show that this program is not about show and tell. It's really about helping businesses, employees, employers, and your constituents to get the most out of commuter services and to know the benefits that come from commuter services. So with that being said, let's give our attention to Mr. Mullins as he'll go through our presentation.
Thank you, Newton. Good morning. My name is Jeremy Mullins. I'm the Director of South Florida Commuter Services. I know we've passed the 2-hour mark, so I'm going to try my best to be brief. Hopefully, I'm still able to impart some useful information today. So as Newton mentioned, did my button do anything here? There we go. As Mr. Wilson mentioned, we are a program of the Department of Transportation. This commuter assistance program is the statewide version of it. It exists in Florida statute. We're required to be this type of entity and required to perform TDM activities. Within those statutes, they describe 3 major functions: promoting ride sharing. And this term ride sharing existed long before Uber and Lyft. When we say ride sharing per the statutes, we're talking about carpooling, van pooling, and of course, getting people into transit. Any situation, we're putting multiple riders into one vehicle. We also generally promote TDM, Transportation Demand Management, and that is the marketing aspect of what we do. We spend a lot of time here interfacing with the general public, trying to encourage people to see the value for them in these other modes of transportation. Essentially, we're trying to get single occupant vehicles off the road, as many as possible. Also, transportation management associations. We are working with a group right now. We were turned on to the group by staff from the TPA, who is working to form a transportation management association. We're pretty encouraged by it, and we're happy that they're taking the initiative to do so, and we're going to try to enable them to do so. The bottom line, what we do, it's centered on these 2 words. We're customer focused. We spend a lot of time talking to the end user, to the point where we don't call transit riders. We want to remind ourselves, we want to remind our partners that they're actual customers. They're spending dollars to use a service. And with that comes things like customer satisfaction, consumer sentiment. And I think an example of this being summarized is a conversation I had with Ms. Nielsen recently. She was sharing that she went out of town and she saw a vehicle that was transporting some people seemingly to work. And the way she communicated it to me, it wasn't that, well, wait a minute, I looked at this thing and it appeared to be some type of support for travel miles reduction. What she said to me was, it was really cool. So cool that it piqued her interest and made her look into it further. And why I appreciated that conversation is that is what we call capturing consumer sentiment. And that is the way we need to be. That is how we're going to communicate and really be impactful with the end user. And the last bullet is really important to us. We're not going to ask the public to lower your standards to what we can afford to give them. We need to find where they are and be there and do what we can to be there. And money isn't falling off the trees. So we also need to prioritize the way we perform accordingly. This chart is one of my go-to charts. I didn't create it. This came directly from FTA. And what it says is that in 2014, transit ridership started to take a nosedive. It had nothing to do with COVID. And that did that even in the face of transit funding increasing. And this is nationally. And we're not pointing the fingers at any particular agency or anybody here. I'm talking about us as a whole, as an industry. We need to do a little better with communicating with the end user. Interestingly enough, what happened in 2014? 2 things. That was a year when millennials became the dominant segment of the workforce, and also Uber and Lyft went national. A lot of folks have always thought that transit as it is could not stand up to competition. And that kind of supports that argument. I'll leave this slide up. You can read it at your leisure while I continue to ramble here. But we did an unofficial poll on Instagram and Facebook, and we asked the general public, just tell us what comes to your mind when you hear the word bus. And you could see for yourself, some of them are pretty sad and funny, but it does tell us this is what we're dealing with. This is what the public thinks of certain types of transit. These are the people that when we go to them and start to tell them, park your car, trust me, jump on this thing. It'll take you 2 hours to get there, even though you could get there in a half an hour in your car. These are those people. And we need to do better in communicating with them and be realistic with ourselves. And again, I'm pointing the finger at myself as well. I'm a part of this. So we have the ability to work with folks. And in working with the end user, these are the brands we talk about. And realistically speaking, the name of our program, South Florida Commuter Services. It's not a marketable name. It's not a catchy name. It doesn't even roll off the tongue easily. So we never use this name when we're talking to the public. We use phrases like Carpool Miami. That's one of our carpooling programs. Florida carpools, when the further we get away from Miami, we could promote carpooling under that brand. Express coaches, there are none right now in South Florida, but I believe Valerie mentioned it in Palm Beach County. Valerie mentioned it. Palm is working on an express coach service from St. Lucie into West Palm. And we went with the brand Express Coach specifically in response to the fact that the public does not like the word bus. And the vehicles that we understand are being procured for this are actually going to be nice coach style bus, indicative of the ones that currently serve Broward County into Miami. And that service proves that if you offer a type of service that the public likes, people park their cars and ride it. FDA refers to those express coaches as a national benchmark. And we have a lot of people in the medical industries, professionals, attorneys, who park very nice cars at park and rides and jump on those vehicles every day. The last one is guaranteed ride home, which I will touch on. And these are some of the items that I will ask you to help us impart to your constituents. At the very top, we love to give away transit passes. We've given away thousands of passes over the last couple of years to people who are telling us that they're trying transit for the first time. We do ask them a simple question. Well, how are you currently commuting? And what we're learning from what people are telling us when they request these transit passes is that today's transit rider, even transit dependent riders, are a lot more sophisticated than we give them credit for. Folks they select the mode very specifically based on the scenario that they're in or the type of trip they're going to make. And sometimes are willing to pay $10 and $20 for that trip because their time is that valuable to them. And again, these are folks who we categorize as transit dependents. Free Uber rides on the bottom left there. This is a very popular part of the program. It's called Guaranteed Ride Home. So if anybody carpools to work or rides transit or bikes and something happens and you're unable to get your mode of transportation that day, this is kind of a security blanket that the DOT offers to the public. You call us, we will send you an Uber, and that Uber will take you home. Sometimes those trips cost as much as $200, and we pay it. But again, that's how dedicated we are to giving people that security that if you park your car, you'll still be able to get home. Express coaches, I touched on a bit, very popular program. Lastly, there are express lanes in Palm Beach County. If folks carpool and there are 3 people in your carpool, you get to use those express lanes for free. I've seen tolls higher than $12 on those things. So this is a huge benefit, and this is money in your pocket. We have thousands of people who carpool daily using those express lanes, and they don't pay a penny. So these are some of the types of information that we're going to ask you, which is why we're really here today to ask for your help. If you have the ability to allow us to come before your respective commissions and councils, or maybe communicate with staff and help to share this information with some of the stakeholders in your communities, we'll be very grateful. I think this is valuable information. We do have a marketing budget, but any assistance that we can get to help share this information, we really appreciate. And that concludes my presentation for the day. I tried to be brief. I hope I wasn't speaking too fast. That is our website. And that's my direct line if anyone feels obligated to give me a call. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeremy and Newton, for coming here today. I wanted to raise awareness about these services that are free. They're funded by FDOT. And as Jeremy mentioned, it's a program to promote carpooling, to encourage people to try riding the bus, to try riding transit with free transit passes, as well as if you're registered with them, you can carpool and avoid tolls on 995 on the express lanes. You can also, it's limited to a certain amount of emergency ride homes, but you can take advantage of a free ride home in case you need it. And I actually ran into your staff at the West Palm Beach Saturday Market at the Green Market, and I asked, is this the only place you're doing this, in Palm Beach County? And so I wanted to bring it to everyone else's attention as something that potentially the staff from South Florida Community Services could come funded by FDOT to your community, to your councils, to your green markets, and help, at least, if anything, provide flyers as we have at the sign-in table. You can grab some on your way out for these programs, or promote this website in your newsletter. Just raise awareness about it, because they do have carpool matching programs and other services for free. So thank you so much for your time and coming here today.
Thanks for having me. Think we have a question?
Oh, actually, we have to go to public comment first,
Okay,
just in case.
sorry.
Do we have any public comments?
No, Madam.
All right, public always comes first. That's what we're here for.
bad.
Thanks, Jeremy. No worries. All right, Mayor Koretsky.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I work for a large corporate employer, so I'm very familiar with these services.
Excellent.
In fact, where I work, they get the priority spaces in the parking lots. You
Awesome.
walk by those to see who took advantage of those programs. So thank you. But coming out today, I know that in town of Jupiter, much smaller employment center, but employment center nonetheless, we have, I forgot what the numbers were, maybe 25% of our employees that are up in Port St. Lucie. So I think, a big corporation handles this stuff and promotes that, but I just wonder, if there's an offer to come in and help us to connect up on that, we can begin to reduce trips that way. I've never seen it at a lower level, like an employment center of 300 people, but is that something you do? And
That is
I'll
the
get back in
single
touch
most
with you.
effective manner by which we promote our services. The only reason, our only limit is the staff that we have, that we can only be at so many
Understand.
places at one time. But by all means, not only do we welcome it, we encourage it strongly. So absolutely, please.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That was a great presentation. And so to share information with our residents, we would just link them to your website primarily, or what's the best way to follow you? On
Website
social
primarily,
media?
but I would encourage, because you're all elected officials are very much in touch with your constituents. If we could talk to you guys directly, we could customize a program, and we'll be happy to come out in person. I mean, we could spend money on advertising, mailings, knock on doors. Just tell us.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much for coming today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Great presentation. All right. So are there any partner agencies that wish to provide an update today?
I'd like to just make a comment. I know we have some Palm Trans staff here today with us, but the graphic that Jeremy mentioned showed to make the point between 2014, I think 2017, the decrease in trans nationally. I think the point that he was trying to make is, we need to do a better job, or FDOT, or everyone, just kind of in that marketing and that message of transit ridership and offering other modes like on-demand services and that sort of thing. But there's a similar program funded by FDOT in the Orlando area, and I saw their van pool programs, and they were branded very, they looked like something I would want to ride. So it's part of the whole messaging and marketing, because our buses are very clean and they're a great experience, but just that stigma and kind of getting people to actually try something else. That's something that they're working on, and we're working on with our partner agencies, to just like our mobility tour that some of our board members participated a few weeks ago, that we rode Palm Tran and Tri-Rail and got to experience that. So thanks everyone who participated in that as well.
Yeah,
And pretend to Palm Tran and SFRTA for hosting us.
Now I've been riding Palm Tran a little bit more these days. It's actually great. I get so much work done and don't need to. I actually love my car, right? As most Americans do, and it's electric, whatever. But I rode transit a little bit the last few weeks and got into my car and was disappointed to have to get into it and not be able to read a book or work on some phone calls for work or whatnot. So I think it's definitely something all of our boards should be spending more time doing, especially now that you can get your first ride for free. All we have to do is give South Florida Commuter Services a call. Nonetheless, do we have any other Anyone else coming up to present? Nope. All right. So do we have anything else from the public, Amanda? All right, we'll be moving on to administrative items. These are provided as information to the board only. There are no staff presentations for these items unless requested by the board member. Do we have any comments regarding the TPA reports and other things that are coming? Nothing
No,
else?
Madam Chair.
All right. So would any of our board members here like additional information regarding the administrative items that were on the agenda, which are routine TPA reports, which are public involvement activity reports for March of 23, and then FDOT scheduling reports for April of 2023. Anything else from the agenda that anyone wanted to discuss? All right, our next meeting will be on May 18th. I thank you all so much for your time and your service. With that, our meeting is adjourned.